Welcome back to yet another video on CoBMC Photography's channel. So this time I really wish I had a smell-o-vision. Sharing is caring, that whole thing, because where I went, it stank real bad. So I went to our local fish ladder that we have in our town. And so there was salmon and trout that were going upstream. They were trying to get back home. They do it every season. But this time it was absolutely insanely packed with big honking fish jumping up the waterfall to try to get home. And wow, the smell. But regardless of the smell, the first time I went with the 55-300 PLM because I did some video, and then I went back with the 150-450. So if you want to do a comparison, you can go ahead and do that. The 55-300 PLM really did hold its own, nice and sharp. And obviously for video, you get the continuous autofocus on the Pentax K3 Mark III, whereas the 150-450, you do not get continuous autofocus. And I wasn't about to shoot video hand holding that lens, and the crowd was pretty big. But let's get into the images themselves. So here we have 60 frames per second, which I slowed down here and there at 24 frames per second for slow motion footage. And then out of the blue, my wife ends up proclaiming that,
"Oh, that one's gonna die. Oh, no, that one's gonna die."
So I panned across, and lo and behold, there was a bunch of fish that were already passed away, just laying on the concrete. This one fish, which I was flipping back and forth between 60 frames a second and then slow motion footage, eventually did make it out of that whole conundrum. But then there were some other fish that jumped up there and quickly realized that is not where they should have gone. And then they were trying to turn around to go back into the water. The good side of this is a lot of the fish that did jump up there, they were able to make it back into the water where they belong. Unfortunately, this is just a circle of life, nature running its course kind of thing. But that also explains why it smelled so unbelievably fishy while I was there. Now, here's two shots I took with the 150-450. Unfortunately, these were the only two shots I took at the fish ladder. The proximity was too close, too many people, 150 millimeter minimum zoom just wasn't going to work out. So I moved on to birding, and originally at the top of this tree were a couple of cormorants. And those cormorants got spooked when this turkey vulture showed up, and then I just waited very patiently, seemingly forever, hoping that the turkey vulture was going to take off, which eventually it did. So I was able to capture a partial sequence of it leaving that one perch area where it was staring me down and started to freak me out. So I'm glad it took off, because I was starting to wonder if there was something going on there. So this next image actually is one of my favorites of the day that I took, which just because of the sunlight, the way it hit the fish. This was with the 55-300 PLM. And then, you know, just one more setting for the ducks floating around in the water, interesting reflection, and that's video footage from the 55-300 PLM. The HD DA 55-300 PLM or the 150-450 AW. Well, they both have their strengths and weaknesses. Namely, the PLM motor in the 55-300 allows cameras such as the Pentax K70, the Pentax KP, and the Pentax K3 Mark III to do continuous autofocus while shooting video. The 150-450 does not. Also, depending on the proximity of what you're shooting and where you're shooting, 150 millimeters might be too long of a focal length, which is what I experienced while I was at the fish ladder. I didn't think it was going to be that big of a deal, and it wouldn't have been if that crowd wasn't so huge and I was forced to have to stand very close to the actual fish ladder. If I was able to put some distance between myself and the fish ladder, it would have been great. Unfortunately, it wasn't, so I couldn't really get many shots whatsoever. Just the field of view was way too tight and it just wasn't going to work out the way it would with the 55-300 PLM, because you can go to a more wider angle, anywhere from 55, 70, 85, 100, right, and all the way up to 300. So in regards to versatility in the focal range, from a more standard focal range to a telephoto focal range, the PLM does a fabulous job. However, the 150-450 as a powerhouse telephoto lens, I mean, that is what it is for, right? And it does an absolutely phenomenal job. So having both of these lenses together on a camera such as the Pentax K3 Mark III, due to the fact that you don't really have to worry much about the aperture or how high your ISO is going. As you saw that image of the person holding their cell phone, that was shot at 10,000 ISO on the K3 Mark III, and look at how well it came out. So really, I would actually grab one of each if you're going to be doing more telephoto shooting, but you want to be able to have that ability to just drop down a bit so you get a more wider angle. However, if you only have money for one lens and you don't quite have enough, or it'll take you a lot longer to save up for the 150-450, you would still be happy with the 55-300 PLM. At least that's my opinion, and that's my experience with that lens. It does punch way above its weight. However, the 150-450, it does cost a lot more money, and there's a reason for that. Construction, features, there's a lot of buttons around it, autofocus directly from the lens, as well as the image quality. It does a much better job at allowing you to crop way into an image just because it holds that image quality together. But you really can't go wrong with either one of these lenses. And that's going to conclude the video. If you like the video, leave a like. If you haven't already, please do subscribe. Always helps out. And if you have any questions or comments, leave them down below, and I'll catch you on the next video. I'm out.